we definitely utilised the sources of Elisabeth Moss tremendously. She was readily available to us, and I think the greatest thing that she gave was the reassurance that we weren't gonna mess up this new show.
They don't want to kill you. They want to take you back.
And I actually want to start by getting into the finale, which features a cameo from Margaret Atwood herself, which made me scream when I saw it. Were you guys on set to see her? What was it like working with her and meeting the architect of this world?
Yeah, actually I was, and I was so fortunate to be in that scene with her when she made that cameo. She was an incredible actress. I really think that she should pursue that side of her career, maybe. But it was so surreal. I mean, being able to have the opportunity to work with the woman that created this world that we are all working together on was so incredible, and she had such wonderful insight to offer as well.
Was there something that she told you guys about, your characters as she was envisioning them, or just as she was watching them come to life that stuck with you after filming?
I remember when I was filming my scene with her, I wanted to have, a conversation with her about how she may have envisioned Becka for the show and how that might translate differently than the book. But we had, great conversations about what her thought process was when she was making these characters and this world. But she was really great in the sense that she let us really take the reins in the way that we wanted to interpret our own characters and how that in our minds would fit into her perception of the world as well, which was really cool.
You were in the scene with her, Lucy and Rowan. Did you have any time with her at all, or?
Yeah, definitely. She was on set quite a lot, round about the time that she was filming, and then I remember having lunch with her, and then the first time I watched the first 3 episodes was with Margaret, and so there was quite a lot of opportunity to spend with Margaret, and I think that was so valuable and precious because she's such a formidable feature in literature and in a lot of individuals' upbringings. And
when you were watching it with her, were there any moments where she was like, oh my gosh?
She was so into it. Yeah, she was.
And you know what I really loved is they had all these snacks laid out, and I remember being like, if no one takes any snacks, then I'm not going to take any snacks, do you know what I mean? Whereas she sat down and immediately picked up a bucket of popcorn, and I was like, okay, we can all eat now.
Yeah.
And that was a joy. But she's so animated, and so if she found something funny, she was roaring with laughter, and she was shocked, and you really felt everything that she went through watching it.
I love that you mention humor because this is such a dark, intense show, but there's also a lot of really funny moments. I mean, anytime Shunammite opened her mouth, especially towards the beginning, I was like, I love what she was saying. So first off, I guess, do you have a favorite Shunammite moment in these early episodes before we get to understand her vulnerability?
It was just fun discovering all the kind of accidental humor and trying to play it really straight, so that I wasn't trying to be funny, which I think was what made it funny.
She about to throw up? Pray give her a second. She's not used to this stuff.
Don't feel sorry for them. They tried to kill us. They're rebel scum.
Every moment you guys met up and were like, praise be the weather, and there was an air of exasperation at a certain point, we have to say this, this is all they let us say. Tell me about performing that kind of rigid dialogue that Gilead has people say.
I mean, it's exactly just like how you said, we have this script and we have these lines that we have to say every single day, and it's our norm, it's what we're accustomed to. But what's so interesting about each of our characters is that we all have our own internal struggles and battles that we're all going through, but we can't be explicit about showing, or we can't be expressive about it. So even with the slightest difference in what word we emphasize within praise be or blessed be the fruit, it could offer different insight to what we're going through that day, which is really interesting in how we can play such similar and continuous, consistent things so differently throughout each scene and in each episode even, and show that progression of each of our characters.
Yeah. I also like that Handmaid's Tale obviously is, again, very dark, and there's a YA coming of age, almost high school clique vibe at certain points, like Plums versus Pearl Girls, which I really like. Can you tell me about building that camaraderie across the season and how that dynamic shifts from episode 1 to the finale?
I think for Daisy, she comes in and she has no interest in being friends with these girls, and it's she's formed very strong preconceived notions of who she thinks these individuals are, and as far as she's concerned, she's better than them and she's from a better place and, they're of no interest. But as the series develops, I think that sentiment really dissipates because there's a growing understanding that they are similar to each other. And I think what was quite fun is at the beginning, those scenes of tension and where, these characters are butting heads, is by that point we'd off screen developed, I'd like to think, quite a nice relationship.
It
And
was
so
okay.
it kind of gave a lot more playing space when it came to those intense tense scenes, because you felt you could really push the other person, because no one was going to be offended by it, and I thought that was quite lovely to see.
I think one of my favorite scenes where I think you can see like that friendship blooming is like the very frank sex ed talk that we get from Daisy to Shunammite. I love that scene so much. I've been thinking about the delivery of "swim up" for like a very, very long time, ever since I saw it. I'd love to hear about, shooting that scene, and again, even though you're not trying to be funny outwardly, finding this lightness and like this girlishness within, like, again, a very strict, rigid system.
Well, I think, in that scene, it's kind of the first moment where I think Shunammite expresses that she doesn't have the answers, right? Like, she doesn't have her period like the other girls. And she's someone who's, like, always trying to be in control. And so, I think when Daisy opens up about what sex is, it's something that Shunammite knows nothing about. So she doesn't really like that. But she can't help but want to know, of course, what sex is. And then it's her way of, like, throwing it back in Daisy's face by being like, well, she must be making that shit up because swimming up sounds crazy.
Yeah. Actually, that scene, the sex ed scene, I remember really enjoying it, but it was a very strange atmosphere because it was a very small, like, there was no big scale to it. And I just remember the whole speech that I was giving Shunammite, I gave it directly into the eyes of our boom op Alex. And I still see that face sometimes in slight horror.
Would love to hear about the hallway scene also at the ball, because again, that's one of those moments where we see these women stand up for each other after being pitted against one another, especially in like this messed up, it's like Bridgerton messed up prom thing that had me writing like jail in my notes like the whole time. Can you tell me a little bit about, again, how that becomes a turning point for your characters?
Well, I think for me at least, that was my first time ever playing drunk on screen, so I was a bit nervous about that going into it.
Shoo, I think I'm gonna be sick.
Plum up. I don't think any of the ants saw.
Everyone's hot.
Daisy, quick. Take her inside. I have to go back before the ants say that I'm...
But that's the first time that I feel like we truly see these girls use each other for support, and we really see that camaraderie come together, and they're allowing each other to really see this vulnerable side of each other where we're letting in on these secrets and stuff that is so anti-Gilead and cannot really be allowed within this world. And it's a way of them showing this strength and power against these men and using each other to find support in that moment. I really enjoyed filming that scene. That scene was a lot of fun to film.
Yeah. I think for Daisy, at least with Becka, it's the point that Becca's humanity is unveiled for Daisy, and I think she realizes that Becca's also a like-minded individual and is also another prospective friend, and I think she sees her in a different light for the first time because she sees a vulnerability in Becca that she hasn't witnessed before. And even like in Shunammite, she's witnessing how protective Shunammite is of her friends, and that's an attribute that I don't think Daisy had afforded her prior to that moment.
I feel like that's the first time Becka is truly honest with herself and with other people. And I think it was so interesting, Daisy being that person, because she had been on the outskirts of Becca's mind, at least. Becka was she was opposing to let Daisy into her life because she was jealous of the relationship that she was cultivating with Agnes at the time. So I think Becka really allowing herself to be vulnerable in her internal struggles of what she was going through in her own identity, and having, Daisy as support there was really remarkable.
For season 2, who for each of you is a character that you want to, share a scene with and really dive further into that relationship with?
We all want to be a Shunammite.
Shunammite just needs more airtime. The show. Yeah, we're big shoe fans.
What is like the physicality of like learning to be a plum or a pearl girl? Like how
Very
did
stiff.
very like
Very
internal.
rigid.
Yeah. and
Posture.
Posture's important. Just manners are important in general.
We had to learn how to properly pour tea. What else did we learn?
Important info.
How to weave.
Yeah.
And sew and everything that we did in the show. We actually took classes on how to do. But even, you know, in the way that we speak, there's no room to really hesitate in our lines. It's just we have everything planned out that we're going to say in our head. Everything is just kind of instinctual. It just happens.
Yeah.
So, you know, one move out of place or one like or even saying like, you know, it offers you're thinking about maybe something else that's not the programmed speech that you have.
Yeah. I think in terms of physicality, though, a lot came from the costumes. They were very influential in that sense because they were restrictive. You could only lift your arm so high. You had to hold yourself or contort yourself in a different way, and you walked differently than how you would do in reality. And even, you know, that acted massively in terms of showing to us how these characters in Gilead would be behaving.
I will say that the part that made me, without thinking of the consequences, the most hype was watching Becka kill her dad, which is a horrible thing, but I think like we've been leading up to it, and also very different from how things go down in the book. Right. So I'm curious, like, what was it like reading that on the page and then like and bringing that to life, knowing that it is a departure and something new for the fans?
Yeah, reading it on the page, I was shocked that this was, you know, how the events would turn out. But as an actor, I was super excited to really dive into that and to be able to play into that crazy part of Becka. I had really great conversations with our showrunner, Bruce Miller, about how to really go about that transition into how Becka mentally gets there. And for Becka, you know, she has felt like such an outsider for so long in this world, within her identity, within her friends, her status even. So this moment when, you know, she's been taught for so long that men who commit these acts are evil and they deserve to be punished in this way, when she finds this out about her father, it's a no-brainer that this is what he deserves and this is what she should do. So she feels this sense of welcoming into a world that she's felt so outside of. So I think for her, it's a way of committing this divine act of justice to really make her mark in this place. And she doesn't really perceive it as this horrible evil that she's doing. If anything, she's protecting her friends. And it shows her loyalties, especially to Agnes at the end of the day.
I was like, yes, wait, no, she's going to be in trouble. Like,
even when I was filming it, I was like, yes, wait, this is our father. Wait, yes, but no.
Yeah. What is something that all of you just want for your character in season 2 going forward?
I want Becka to find some peace. I want her to relax a little bit.
After what happened at the ball, you should be throwing yourself at the mercy of Aunt Lydia.
I think Shunammite is different than these girls in the sense that she really wants to get married and have a baby, and like she believes what she's been told, you know? So I'm curious in the next season what would make her want something different.
Yeah.
Like what could happen to her that would shake her view a little bit.
I'd like to see where Daisy's newfound determination for preserving these girls and, you know, returning to Gilead. I want to see where that takes her and what she can achieve with that. Because I think season 1 is a lot of Daisy trying to do the right thing, but she doesn't have a clear goal in mind. And I think season 2, she's a lot more, you know, the fog is starting to clear a bit, and I think she's putting together a more precise plan or desire. And I'm interested to see where that will take her.
It was time for us to change things.
'Cause you're a dream to me.